I asked when the wedding is and my daughter-in-law said, "We got married yesterday." For a moment, my ears refused to believe what they had heard. My chest tightened, and I felt the air shift around me as though the world had tilted ever so slightly. My son, my only child, had been planning this union for months, or so I had been told. There were talks of venues, talks of dresses, even talks of family photographs. I had kept aside money, saved up for years, and quietly tucked away heirlooms I wanted to pass down at that moment. And now, with a smile far too casual, she had stripped me of it all in a single sentence. "Yesterday," I repeated, my voice trembling despite my effort to keep steady. She nodded, a slyness flickering in her eyes, though her lips remained in that practiced smile. "Yes." It was sudden. We didn't want the fuss. We thought it would be easier this way. You know, simpler. Simpler. The word stung like vinegar in an open wound. I turned my gaze to my son, standing behind her. His head hung low, shoulders slack, as though he had already surrendered his will. He couldn't even meet my eyes. Why wasn't I told? I asked, though the question felt useless. He shifted uneasily, mumbling, "It just happened quickly, Mom." We didn't want the stress. But I had known my son since his first cry, since his first fever, since his first stumble. I knew the tone of his voice when he spoke truth and when he hid behind someone else's choices. This wasn't his decision. This was hers. I looked at her again, this woman who now bore the title of my daughter-in-law. And in her eyes, I saw it. Possession. Not love, not warmth, not the glow of a bride in new beginnings. No, what I saw was the cold satisfaction of someone who had claimed a prize, someone who had wanted control and had finally fastened her grip. That night, as I sat alone in my quiet house, I let the weight of it wash over me. My husband had been gone nearly a decade now, taken too soon by illness, leaving me with the responsibility of raising our son into a man. Every sacrifice, every late-night worry, every dollar stretched, had been for him. And now, just when I thought I'd step into a softer chapter of life, grandchildren, family gatherings, laughter echoing through the walls, I was shut out like an unwanted guest. The anger came later. At first, it was just grief. But as days passed, and as her presence grew sharper in our lives, anger began to stir beneath the surface like a storm building. She had not only excluded me from their wedding, she had orchestrated it that way. This was no accident. This was a move. And like every move, it came with motive. I started noticing the changes in my son. His calls grew shorter, his visits less frequent. He seemed distracted, uneasy, like a man walking with a chain around his ankle. She, meanwhile, blossomed into her role, deciding, directing, dictating. She smiled when I was near, but it was never real. It was the kind of smile wolves wear when they circle sheep. I had lived long enough to know when someone was plotting. I had lived long enough to know when patience was a weapon. And I had lived long enough to know that revenge, if it was to be done right, must be a slow burn. The first test of her character came when she invited me to their new home, a house I had never seen, though I had helped, unknowingly, fund part of it. I brought a gift, a quilt my grandmother had made by hand, stitched with threads of history, meant to be passed to the next generation. I presented it with quiet reverence, hoping for a flicker of gratitude. She took it, held it in her hands, then gave me that same empty smile. "Oh, how quaint," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "We'll put it away somewhere." Somewhere. The word cut me open. My son stood silent again, eyes darting away, as though ashamed to witness my humiliation. That night, I cried again, but less for the insult and more for the realization. My son was slipping further into her shadow. And if I let this continue, I would lose him forever. So I began to watch. Not just them, but her. I studied the way she spoke, the way she maneuvered conversations, the way she subtly isolated him. She had a knack for making herself appear as though she was doing him favors, when in truth, she was stripping away his independence, one decision at a time. I saw the control in her eyes when she ordered meals for him at restaurants. I heard it in the way she corrected him mid-sentence, shaping his words to fit her narrative. I even felt it in the chill of her silence, that deliberate wall she built between us. Most people at my age might have given up, told themselves that young people must live their own lives. But not me. No. I had been underestimated before, written off as a fragile widow, a woman whose best years had passed. They thought time had dulled my edge. But they were wrong. The thing about age is this: it doesn't weaken you. It sharpens you. It makes you patient. It teaches you when to strike and when to stay still. And though my heart ached, though loneliness often visited my nights, I knew this much: if I didn't act, she would erase me from his life completely. And that I would never allow. The chance for my first move came sooner than I expected. They invited me to dinner one Sunday, a gesture that felt forced, but was my window nonetheless. She cooked, served the food with dramatic flair, and kept steering every conversation back to herself. My son looked weary, but he smiled when he caught my gaze, a flicker of the boy I raised still lingering inside him. At one point, she excused herself to take a call, leaving her phone on the counter. She had barely left the room when it buzzed. Out of habit, my eyes flicked to the screen. The message preview was from a name I didn't recognize. It read, "Had a great time yesterday. Can't wait until we're alone again." My breath caught, but I kept my face still. She returned moments later, picking up the phone with a casualness that only sharpened my suspicion. She had secrets. And secrets, I knew, were the kindling of revenge. I said nothing that night. I played the part of the grateful mother, thanked her for dinner, hugged my son, and drove home. But inside, my resolve had hardened. She thought she had married him in secrecy to cut me out. She thought she had gained the upper hand. She thought her lies were safe. But she didn't know me. She didn't know the years had taught me not just endurance, but strategy. She didn't know that once I found a thread, I could unravel the entire fabric. And I had found my first thread. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying that message over and over. Had a great time yesterday. Can't wait until we're alone again. It wasn't proof, not yet. It could have been a misunderstanding, a harmless exchange. But deep in my gut, the same gut that had told me when my husband was hiding his worsening illness to spare me worry, I knew what it meant. She was keeping more than one secret. And suddenly, my anger found direction. You see, revenge isn't just about lashing out. It isn't about shouting or storming or confronting in blind fury. That's how amateurs fail. True revenge is quieter. It's methodical. It is not delivered in heat, but in the coolness of control. I knew I had to gather information, to bide my time, to build my case not for the world, but for my son. Because unless I revealed her for who she truly was, he would remain chained to her shadow. So I began. At first, it was subtle. I asked small questions when we spoke on the phone. How are you doing? Is she treating you well? Do you feel happy? He always answered quickly, like a man swatting away gnats. Yes, Mom. I'm fine. Don't worry. But his tone betrayed him. I could hear the weariness, the hesitation. My son was not fine. I began showing up unexpectedly at his workplace, at their home. Sometimes I brought cookies, sometimes an old photo album, sometimes just an excuse to drop by. Each time, I studied them. She never seemed pleased to see me. Her smile tightened, her words shortened, her body tensed. It confirmed what I already knew. She did not want me near. And yet, she underestimated me. One afternoon, when she was out shopping, I found myself alone with my son in their living room. He looked tired, his shoulders slumped as though carrying weight too heavy for his years. Son, I said softly, are you happy? He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a moment I saw the boy I once knew, the one who used to run to me with scraped knees, who used to hug me without hesitation. His lips parted as though he wanted to spill everything, but then the sound of her car pulling into the driveway snapped him shut. He whispered, "Don't ask me that, Mom," before standing and forcing a smile as she walked in. That was when I knew. He wasn't free to speak. She had tightened her grip so strongly that even his voice was no longer his own. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a pen and notebook. I wrote down everything. The suspicious text message, his silences, the way she belittled family heirlooms, the way she isolated him. Piece by piece, I was building the case not just in my mind, but in my hands. My husband had once said to me, "The strongest weapon you'll ever hold isn't anger, it's evidence." He had been right. Weeks turned into months, and I grew patient, watching carefully, listening intently. I followed my instincts, and they led me to cracks in her story. She told my son she was working late, but I spotted her at a cafe across town laughing too comfortably with a man whose hand lingered too long on hers. She claimed she was visiting her cousin in another state, but a friend of mine saw her at a hotel nearby. I never confronted her. Not once. I smiled when she spoke, nodded when she lied, and tucked every piece of truth away like gold coins in a chest. Because the day would come when I would open that chest, and everything inside would shine so brightly even my son's blinded heart would see. But life has a cruel way of testing resolve. One evening, I received a call from my son. His voice was low, shaky. "Mom," he said, "she says we shouldn't visit you anymore. She thinks you interfere too much." I don't know what to do. The words sliced through me. She was cutting the final thread, severing him from me entirely. For a moment, I almost begged him not to let her win. But then I remembered. Begging was what she expected. She wanted me desperate, broken, clinging. I would give her none of that. Instead, I said calmly, "Son, I love you. That will never change. But remember this, truth always comes out. Always." He was silent for a long time before whispering, "I know, Mom." Then the line went dead. That night, my grief transformed fully into fire. I knew what I had to do. The next week, I made my move. Quietly, carefully, I approached a lawyer, a kind man I had known through church. I explained my suspicions, asked what rights I had, asked what I could do if proof of betrayal surfaced. He listened patiently, then said words that strengthened my resolve. "If she's hiding infidelity or financial deceit, it won't stay buried. Document everything. Protect your son. When the time comes, we'll act." So I continued documenting. Every sighting, every rumor, every discrepancy went into my notebook. And then, fate delivered me the moment I had been waiting for. One cold afternoon, I drove past that same cafe where I had once seen her. And there she was again, sitting with the same man, laughing in a way she never laughed with my son. This time, I parked, entered quietly, and sat 2 tables away. I ordered tea, pretended to read a book, and used my phone to capture photographs. Her hand resting on his, her head tilted too close, his arm brushing hers as though they were already more than friends. When she left, I followed at a distance, never close enough to be noticed. She drove not home, but to a hotel. And there I took the final photographs. Proof undeniable. I felt no triumph. Only sorrow. Sorrow that my son was entangled with a woman who had betrayed him so deeply. Sorrow that his loyalty had blinded him. But sorrow alone doesn't right wrongs. Action does. I tucked the evidence away. Not yet, I told myself. Not yet. Timing matters. If I revealed it too soon, she could twist it, manipulate it, convince him I was meddling. No, I needed him ready. I needed him to reach the point where doubt gnawed at him, where he yearned for truth. Only then would the evidence cut clean. The chance came unexpectedly. One evening, he showed up at my house alone. He looked gaunt, exhausted, as though life had drained him. He sank into the chair at my kitchen table, the same chair where his father once sat. "Mom," he whispered, "I don't know who I am anymore. She tells me I'm nothing without her. She says you're just jealous." Sometimes I believe her. And then I hate myself for it. I reached across the table, took his hand, and held it the way I used to when he was a child. "Son, you are not nothing. You are everything I ever lived for. But you need to see her clearly. You need to see the truth with your own eyes." His eyes lifted to mine, searching, desperate. "Do you know something I don't?" My heart pounded, but I kept my voice steady. "Yes." I brought out the envelope I had prepared, the photographs, the notes, the dates. I slid it across the table. "This is yours. Do with it what you will. But know this, you deserve better. You deserve freedom. You deserve love that isn't poisoned with lies." He hesitated, staring at the envelope like it was a bomb. Finally, with trembling hands, he opened it. I watched his face as the truth unfolded before him. Shock first. then disbelief, then anger so raw it shook him. His voice cracked. She's been with someone else. All this time. I nodded, my own tears falling silently. Yes. For a long time, he sat there, staring at the evidence, his world crumbling. And I did not comfort him. Because some lessons must be faced in their full pain to be truly understood. At last, he stood. Thank you, Mom. His voice was hollow, but his eyes carried something new, a spark of clarity. When he left that night, I knew the war was far from over. She would not go quietly. Women like her never do. She would claw, manipulate, twist, and fight. But now, for the first time, the balance of power had shifted. And I was ready for the final act. When my son left that night with the envelope in hand, I knew nothing in his life would ever be the same again. For years, she had wound her threads around him, spun her web so tight he couldn't see the trap he lived in. But I had cut through it with proof. Now, all that remained was the aftermath. 2 days later, he called me. His voice was sharp, fueled by a mixture of pain and rage. Mom, I confronted her. She denied it. She called me crazy, said you forged it all to break us apart. She even said you've hated her from the start. I let him speak, didn't interrupt. Because I knew this was part of her defense, confusion, manipulation, denial. She had played this game with him for so long, and she thought she could win it again. But I showed her the photographs, he continued, his voice trembling. She couldn't deny them. She tried, but I saw it in her eyes. She knew she was caught. Silence followed, heavy and raw. Then he whispered, Mom. She screamed at me. Said I was nothing, said I'd be lost without her. Then she packed a bag and left. I closed my eyes, breathing in the moment. Relief, sorrow, vindication, they all mingled together inside me. She had finally revealed herself, and my son had finally seen her for who she truly was. But this was not victory yet. Because women like her do not disappear quietly. They return, clawing, manipulating, scheming. And I knew she would try to pull him back. The very next week, it began. She called him endlessly, left messages that swung wildly between venom and sweetness. You'll regret this. I'm the only one who ever loved you. Come back to me, I'll forgive you. Classic tactics of control. My son, though shaken, brought every message to me. Mom, why do I feel guilty? He asked one evening, slumping in the same kitchen chair where his father once gave him lessons about manhood. She betrayed me, but I feel like I'm the one at fault. I reached over and touched his hand. Because she trained you to feel that way. She made you believe love was a chain. But real love, son, real love is freedom. He looked at me then, eyes red with unshed tears, and I saw the boy he once was, the boy who trusted me, who needed me, who looked to me for guidance. And I vowed then that I would not let him fall again. Still, I knew I could not fight this battle for him. Revenge is never about doing it all yourself. It's about guiding others to see clearly, to choose strength over weakness. So I gave him the only advice that mattered. Do not answer her calls. Do not let her poison your heart again. When she shows up, and she will stand tall. And remember, you're your father's son. Stronger than you know. And just as I predicted, she showed up. It was late one evening when I heard the crunch of tires in my driveway. I peered through the window and saw her car, sleek and black, headlights cutting into the night. She stepped out, dressed immaculately as always, her hair perfectly styled, her lips painted with that poisonous red. She didn't knock. She barged straight into my home as though she owned it. Where is he? She demanded, eyes blazing. Where's my husband? I stood calmly in the living room, refusing to flinch. He's not yours anymore. Her laugh was sharp, bitter. You think you've won, don't you? You think you can turn him against me. You pathetic old woman, clinging to a son because you've got nothing else left. The word stung, but I did not show it. Instead, I straightened my back, meeting her venom with steel. I don't need to turn him against you. You did that yourself when you betrayed him. Her eyes narrowed, fury flashing across her face. For a moment, she looked ready to strike me. But then, before she could speak again, my son appeared in the doorway. He had heard everything. His face was pale but determined, his jaw tight. "You need to leave," he said, his voice low and steady. She spun toward him, instantly shifting her tone. "Darling, don't listen to her. She's poisoning you. You know I love you. You know I'm the only one who truly understands you." But my son stood firm. "No, you don't love me. You love control. You love power. But love? Love doesn't look like lies in hotel rooms." Her face twisted, the mask cracking. "You'll regret this," she spat. "You'll come crawling back. You're nothing without me." But my son didn't flinch. "I'm not nothing. I'm my father's son. I'm my mother's son. And I'll never let you break me again." And with that, he opened the door wide. "Get out." For the first time since I had known her, she looked shaken. Truly shaken. Her eyes darted between us, realizing she had lost her hold. With a final snarl, she stormed out into the night, slamming the door behind her. Silence filled the room, heavy and fragile. My son sank onto the couch, his face buried in his hands. For a moment, I hesitated, then I sat beside him, wrapping my arm around his shoulders. He leaned into me, broken but free. "It hurts so much," he whispered. "I know," I said softly. "But sometimes, son, the greatest revenge isn't destroying them. It's walking away, living free, and letting them choke on their own emptiness." In the weeks that followed, the storm finally began to calm. She tried a few more times, letters, more calls, even attempts to smear his name among friends. But truth has a way of cutting through lies. People began to see her for who she was, and her power dwindled. My son slowly rebuilt himself. He went to counseling, poured himself into work, even started spending weekends fixing up his old truck, the one he and his father had worked on years ago. I saw light return to his eyes, laughter return to his voice. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, he turned to me and said, "Mom, thank you for saving me." Tears welled in my eyes. "No, son, you saved yourself. I only showed you the truth." He smiled then, a real smile, free of shadows. And I realized something important. Revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is simply ensuring the one you love is no longer shackled, no longer suffering. Sometimes revenge is justice disguised as freedom. Enjoying the stories? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for more amazing content. Let us know where you're watching from by dropping your country in the comments below. And as the years rolled on, she faded from our lives like a bad dream. My son found new strength, new purpose, and in time, new love that was real, tender, unchained. And when he finally remarried, this time with joy and openness, I stood proudly by his side, the way I was always meant to. I never told him how close I came to despair in those dark days, how often I wept alone, fearing I had lost him forever. I never told him how much his father's memory guided me, whispering courage when I felt weak. Some truths are too heavy to pass on. But I carried one lesson in my heart, and I share it now. Revenge is not always fire and fury. Sometimes it is patience. Sometimes it is letting time sharpen the blade until the cut is clean. And sometimes it is simply ensuring that those who tried to break you are left with nothing, while you, quietly, build everything back again. And so, when I look at my son now, standing tall, laughing freely, living fully, I know this. She thought she had silenced me by marrying him in secrecy. She thought she had erased me. She thought she had won. But in the end, she only destroyed herself. And that was the sweetest revenge of all.